Okay, so we stopped at this question where the audience asked, "What are you saying?" after his praise and his kind of description of constitutionalism, meşrutiyet. And whenever we hear constitutionalism in this text, we should comfortably think of it as synonymous with democracy in contemporary terms. At the time, that term wasn't in circulation.
What page we are at, Manuste?
This is page 10 in the translation document. Page 10. The top of page 10. What are you saying? You are treating a sick man as though he were healthy. The new state of affairs, like the old one, carries great harm for us. It oppresses us. Besides, it looks no different than the old, still weak and ineffectual. That means the constitutionalism you are describing has not yet greeted us, that we should return its salutation with a hearty welcome. Now, their question is that, you are talking so nicely about constitutionalism, but look, it doesn't look that different from what we used to have, and it looks like it just brings more harm to us. It oppresses us, and it's weak. So, what are you talking about? What we see is not what you are talking about. That's the question. Answer: no, on the contrary, he quotes here, I wanted to get water from a creek. I wanted a cloud to come and drop rain. I saw a black-eyed beauty. I praised liberty, which is beautiful as a houri. But she was afraid of your madness and wouldn't come close. Oppression is not the fault of meşrutiyet or constitutionalism. It is perhaps due to the darkness in your minds. Oppression is not the fault of constitutionalism. It is perhaps due to the darkness in your minds, if there is oppression. With your madness, you make a short road long. With your madness, you make a short road long. Had the Kudan and Mamhuran tribes paid the taxes that they have been told to give in all circumstances, there wouldn't be this much oppression. If a nation, through its ignorance, remains unaware of its rights, it turns even patriotic rulers into oppressors. A crucial paragraph.
The last sentence is really striking.
Yeah, it's a striking one, and it tells a lot about, it's not about the past, as you know, this is really a conceptual thing. With the help of metaphors, he's presenting the idea of liberty and democracy. Liberty of individual liberty, and collective democracy. Rule of law, freedom, experience at the collective level. So let's go back to the beginning of his answer. He says, look, what I described to you, the ideal of democracy or constitutionalism, is like the water from a creek, and it's very important. Water from a creek. In villages, people didn't have water, in their houses. Some of us might have experienced, witnessed, or even lived in under those circumstances. People would bring water from outside for drinking purposes or for washing and so on. And also there is irrigation. For growth of something, you need water to be directed towards a certain field. So I wanted to get water from a creek. Water, source of life, something that facilitates growth, something that cleans. I wanted a cloud to come and drop rain. An arid land, imagine. Desolate place, a cloud dropping rain, and kind of making possible for that land to have vegetation and life. I saw a black-eyed beauty. Now, liberty in Western tradition is always depicted as a beautiful woman. Freedom is a feminine thing. It's a beauty. It's something that's desired, and often one of the breasts is out. You might have seen in French Revolution in such places. Even the Ottomans' conception of Meşrutiyet was very much influenced by that. And Bediüzzaman, in his treatment of constitutionalism or idea of liberty, he has this depiction. He calls nazik hürriyet, for example. It's fragile. It's a feminine entity. I praise liberty. I praise liberty, which is beautiful as a huri. Now here it's translated into vernacular language, so to say. In the Muslim imagination, a beautiful woman is compared to a huri, and they say, a huri are so desirable, so transparent that you can see their bones, whatever, as if it's something, aphrodisiac or appealing. I don't know, but that's one of the descriptions. In any case, liberty is a beauty. It's desired, but the quote ends here. But she was afraid of your madness and wouldn't come close. Madness. What is madness? Madness describes lack of something. If we think about it, madness is lack of reason. It wouldn't come close to you because of your madness. Oppression is not the fault of constitutionalism. It is perhaps due to the darkness in your minds. Now he says that you are right. There is oppression in present situation. So constitutionalism has been declared in the Ottoman Empire, and officers continue to oppress people. Gendarmerie, the rural or country police or military units, they continue to oppress the peasants, and it looks like not much has changed. In Istanbul, certain things have changed, but as recipients of constitutionalism, of Meşrutiyet, these people don't see much difference. But he says oppression is not the fault of Meşrutiyet. It is perhaps due to the darkness in your minds. What does that mean will be explained in the following sentences. With your madness, you make a short road long. With your madness, a road that was short is turned long. It's made long. Had the Kudan and Mamkhuran tribes, these are real ashirets in Kurdistan. They are on. I studied a little bit, list of ashirets in Kurdish lands, and these are two. They are mentioned, and they are considered as very, warrior. Some of them, disobedient, kind of rebellious character, warlike tribes, Mamkhuran and Kudan. In Turkish rendering of those names are different. Some in Turkish, some they say Gevdan or Gudan or Kudan. There are various.
I was Gevdan and Mamkhuran.
Yeah,
Gevdan.
yeah. In English, Mamkhuran is more or less the same in different sources. Kudan is articulated, presented differently. Based on an earlier text referring to this tribe, I use Kudan here. They were not paying their taxes. Had they paid their taxes that they have been told to give in all circumstances, that is to say, there's no way, you have to pay your taxes. They have been told to pay your taxes. They didn't pay their taxes. Had they done that, there wouldn't be this much oppression. Yes. Ahmed Osman, you want to say something?
I was not sure, but when you say Kudan, also I don't know, social media, you have a lot of information sometimes. So for the etymology of Kurd, also Kudan, they say something, some Kudo, Kudan, in the story, they were something with...
I don't know. This is the name of a tribe,
Yeah.
It's unlikely to be something.
Which area they are? These tribes are which part of Pakistan?
Yeah, I think they are in Hakkari area, but I'm not sure. There is a map. We can now look into that. But yeah. So there wouldn't be this much oppression. What does it mean? Paying taxes. Oppression comes when you do not pay taxes, and if you pay taxes, then oppression will be lifted. If a nation, the answer comes in this last sentence, which summarizes the whole point here. If a nation, if a people, through its ignorance, remains unaware of its rights, it turns even patriotic rulers into oppressors. If you don't know your rights, in America, it's very important, it's very central to civic culture. There are, CARE and such organizations, civic groups, they issue pamphlets telling people, know your rights, know your rights. You should know how to behave when police stops your car, when someone knocks on your door, and so on. You should know your rights. It's very important. Law enforcement tells citizens their rights, right? Even when they are criminal and they are arrested. Why? Rule of law requires knowledge about rights. Now, if you do not know your rights, then even if people are patriotic, meaning, they really think positively of their people, they want to help their people, they turn into despots. When you are ignorant, you are an animal, and they become shepherds. The guy says, I'm shepherd of the people. When you are ignorant, you deserve a shepherd.
And this is the maybe most influential, let's say, I don't want to say important part. They were using in
Yeah.
Zehra Cemaati, the original one, many friends will. Evet, bir millet cehaletle hukukunu bilmezse ehli hamiyeti dahi müstebit eder.
Yeah. So even it means it's not only for Turkish state, but even think of Kurdish organizations, certain groups, their despoticness in part comes from the nature of the people they are dealing with. When you are ignorant, you need to be told what to do. When you know your rights, then you know what to do. So those tribes who were not paying taxes, they invite oppression because you broke the law now. So whatever state does to you, you can't object because you are not following the law. You pay your taxes, then you can challenge the state. In America, we see this very clearly, right? In all democratic discourses, that anti-government, critical attitudes among the citizenry in this country is always based on the fact that we pay taxes. You can't do this. You are officers serving us. But if you are not paying taxes, that means you are living in a coercive system. You are not paying taxes. They are not doing their job. Whoever has power is gonna rule. Now,
Text is also the citizenship too. American. I am American. I am born
yeah,
in this country, so I have right. Even that's also, I mean, really complex issue to understand because
yeah,
everybody came from somewhere, right? And nobody is instead of Native Americans. Unfortunately, Kek Nuralim is telling us all the sad history they had.
yeah,
But other than that, they say I am born here, so I am different. And today I don't know, Ibrahim is getting, I sent him a message, he's disconnecting. We had a conversation with him, really
okay,
talked about different things. So even we have the cultural center here, we are all living in America, or Jemaat in Turkey, Diyarbakir. So it's like this Munazarat is important that way. It's like a behavioral thing too. So we don't know to be democratic,
yeah,
anything further to center management or discussion teacher that people are hesitant to share their ideas, or you push them, just tell you want this or this. They don't want to say, or they think that's, I mean, it's, but Americans, even if they are in the taxi, in the Uber, they know their rights. They say, I am right is this. If you don't do that, I have a right to tell you, or in the politics or in the school.
yeah.
As a person, they feel they have their rights, that confidence is really different than Turks or Kurds.
Exactly, exactly. Because citizenship is about exercise of power. Really, citizenship means you have power, but you exercise power uh, together with other people exercising their powers, and then so law is about that, regulating those different liberties, and therefore it becomes very crucial to know what the limits are, and that's the idea of hukuk, rights and rules and so on. Now, if you in a democracy, you are free when you are citizen. It means, if you are alone, you can be free. You are not citizen because you are the ruler, and you are alone. Now, in a democracy, there are too many rulers. Everybody is a ruler. Everybody is also a ruled person. Meaning, at the same time, you are citizen as recipient of law, and also you are citizen as the creator of the law. Right? Citizens make law, so by electing people and sending them to the Senate and whatever legislative bodies.
It's actually called governance, right?
Yes, to direct attention to this kind of how do you call it, two-directional character of it. They call it governance rather than government, because government still has the idea of somebody ruling.
Right.
Yeah.
Or symbiotic.
Or what?
Symbiotic or reciprocal.
It's more reciprocal, yes. Or yeah. Yeah, it's actually, same people being ruled and ruling, that nature, governance. You rule yourself, self-government, in other words. Now, so this notion that if a nation has to know its rights, then you can make your rulers accountable. Now, even good guys, when you are ignorant, they become despots. Bad guys would much easy, become despots much easily, and you deserve it. When you are ignorant, when you do not know your rights, then you almost attract you attract oppression. It says your madness scares liberty. Your madness is responsible for the oppression you receive. It is the darkness in your minds, he said. If you remember, oppression is not the fault of constitutionalism. It is perhaps due to the darkness in your minds. Here, we know darkness in mind always refers to lack of knowledge, jahalet. And the opposite of darkness is enlightenment. And enlightenment is with knowledge and, knowing your rights. So the idea here is that you have to pay taxes. That's your participation in. It's the ground for your rights. basically the tax-paying action is that you participate in the pool of sovereignty, and that way you have the right to exercise powers, which gives you citizenship rights. Then rulers or other people cannot infringe on all your rights. They cannot oppress you. They cannot violate your liberty. You say this government is as weak as the old one. One of the objections they have. This is really a cool line. Let's hear his answer. He says, yes, in weakness, a 9-year-old child might look like a 90-year-old man in weakness. But the latter is soon to sink into the grave, while the former is rising up toward manhood. So we have a 9-year-old child and 90-year-old old man. 90-year-old old man is the despotic, sultanate of Ottoman Empire. It is the old system, ancien regime. And then we have 9-year-old, the child. It's fragile like the old man, right? Children are also fragile like elderly. And it might also look weak, even weaker than the old man. But there is a difference in terms of, this is the beginning and this is the end for one. The old man is gonna sink into the grave, while the young child, 9-year-old child, is rising up towards manhood, meaning it's gonna get stronger and more powerful. So at this moment, in other words, he says, what you see is not the entire picture of constitutionalism. What you see is the beginning of it. It's, original, childish, age level. It's gonna grow into a mature person. It's gonna grow into a young man. They ask question, why are things so murky, so unclear? And things are murky. The villager receives gendarmerie, the officer, a tax collector, and those people are quite oppressive and acting arbitrarily, not so much law. He says something that has long been on the brink of ruin cannot be fixed all at once. I will give you an example. A spring, over a long period of time, has stagnated. Its water has become foul. All sorts of trash has fallen into it. Even if you clean it out, removing the filth and turning it back into a fresh pool, will the water not run cloudy for some time? But do not worry. In the end, it will be clear. Beautiful metaphor for the peasants to understand. Right? Anybody who have messed with water knows very well that, especially in wells where the water is very stagnant, a little mud or a little, interference in the water results in some commotion, and then the water loses its clarity. But if something is flowing, in the beginning it might appear muddy, but later it's gonna become clear. If it is running, very important dimension. So what you see right now is the beginning, the murky moment. The unclean water is running from the past, but in the future, that water is going to be clean and clear. Shall we read one more question? Or is that enough? What do you think? Yes? Okay.
What time? 8:44. Yeah, I think one more is.
Okay.
I
Yes.
was changing the room. So for Munazarat, it's now we have 10 page in English. I think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My book was not here. I brought it from center, so I'm trying to read the Turkish pages read the English. So, but questions are not following each other, right? They are, or what's the, how is the flow through the...
Well, yeah, they're not always immediately related to each other. Sometimes they are related. It's he had some main things he wanted to present, and then he tried to give some coherence to it. But sometimes he himself says that questions might not be immediately related. Yeah, that's why there is a lot to discuss, and he put it in Q&A form so that he can cover different aspects. Okay. So let's then read our next question. How much of the constitutionalism you are describing has already reached us? Why did it not all arrive? How much of the constitutionalism you are describing has already reached us? And why did it not all arrive? Why do we not get all of it? Only a tenth of it could have reached you. That is, 10% of it could have reached you. Wow, not much has arrived. Only 10%. Why? Because poor, defenseless constitutionalism is afraid of the bears of wilderness. Bears of wilderness. The dragons of ignorance. And the wolves of enmity. Wilderness, ignorance, enmity, do they ring familiar to you? Three major issues: poverty, ignorance, and disunity. We see that here. Enmity is related to disunity. Wilderness has to do with poverty, the economic desolation of the place, and ignorance is more obviously about lack of education. Go ahead.
And the question before this, it was saying that Pınar, what's Pınar in English?
Spring.
Spring. So that spring, even it doesn't say 100 years in English, but it says 100 seneden beri haraba 100 sene. So even that spring is brink of ruin, or it needs to be fixed, and they are getting the tenth of that spring, right? Also,
yes.
Even from the broken spring, they are not getting enough. They even need. Okay.
Yeah. So the constitutionalism, they got just a glimpse of it, very little amount of it. So even if he says, because constitutionalism, poor constitution, is concerned, is afraid, how can it come? What are the obstacles? So this part is a important, again, piece where he talks about what are the obstacles to democracy in the Kurdish lands. Why do Kurds do not have their freedom? Why do they not experience democracy in their lands? What are the obstacles? So here he is presenting them. He's saying that bears of wilderness, the dragons of ignorance, and the wolves of enmity that haunt your wild, fractious, and benighted mountains and ravines, meaning, dağ ve dereler, your benighted, dark, fractious, wild geography, territory. And we shouldn't think of it, of course there is metaphor, but in reality also there is, you can't go to Hakkari or Shirnak. It's very, tight geography. Getting there aren't that many roads, and it's not easy. That's why they want to destroy those lands and, create new cities where government and police and, military can have immediate, easy access. But he says, there are those things that are preventing constitutionalism from reaching you. She dares not come. If you remain lazy, now what should you do? Given the nature of your territory, the condition of your community, suffering from wilderness, ignorance, enmity. what should you do? If you remain lazy and do not pave a road for her, if you remain lazy and do not pave a road for her, you won't see her full beauty. You won't see her full beauty for another 100 years.
Okay, Mamush, it's really heavy. Many things he's trying to explain us, right? So, okay, why constitutionalism, meşrutiyet is afraid of wilderness, or instead of it says instead of you want to take it or become free or let's say democratic, whatever, but also meşrutiyet doesn't want. So it means the Ottoman Empire at that time, right? Or they are what does it mean here?
No, it's not about the Ottomans. It's about the nature of constitutionalism or democracy. It's that's why in the beginning we talked about its feminine character. It's a beauty. It's like a huri. Would a huri, a beautiful woman, walk into wilderness? Only a wild man, a rugged person, only men can deal with bear, but even men can deal with bears, right? So what does it say? A woman is here represents civility. The reason why it is feminine is civility. Medeniyet. Civil. That is, you interact in a, not based on coercion, it's not muscle power, it's mutual understanding. Now, this delicate beauty, freedom, liberty, it cannot reach you because the road is blocked by those wild stuff. You can't, people lose their path and they get stuck in the mountains sometimes. People are afraid of bears, wolves. That's why it's not about Ottoman state not sending constitutionalism or rights to the Kurds. It's basically saying this is verilmez getirilir. It is not something that will be given to you and you will have it. It is something that comes into existence and you make the path, you invite and you bring it. You have to make the road. You have to pave the road. If you remain ignorant, remember, it won't reach you. You will remain under despotism. There will be oppression. Here, I think this is very important because oftentimes people, Kurds included, can we turn off? Okay. Oftentimes people, talk about, state should do this, state should do that, right? Devlet nerede? Why doesn't state give this to Kurds? Well, as long as you beg rights, you beg for things, favors from state, you won't reach liberty. Liberty won't come to you. You have to bring that idea of freedom by educating yourself about your rights. So you have to have your constitutionalism in your mind and heart before constitutionalism of the state can fully, establish itself in your place. Anybody wants to jump in here, please feel free if you have something to say.
And also, that's there's a different little bit, but even they say, after Ottoman Empire, the beginning of the Turkish Republic, even English, that time British, they, were having an idea of Kurdistan or, maybe free Kurdistan, but they said Kurds are, there are different, of course, arguments on that, but they say Kurds were not ready, or even you are thinking from imperialists or big powers, but they are seeing they are not ready, or they don't want to take a risk of unstable area, whatever.
Exactly. This is a fact we have to recognize. Kurds cannot have freedom as long as they remain ignorant. what is going to happen? You even if you become independent, you will end up in the hands of a dictator if you remain ignorant. If you not educate yourself, if you not clear your ground, if you not clear that water spring, these are all uh, referring to the responsibility of citizenship. Citizenship is how you make yourself deserving of freedom in a civil environment. That means Kurds are so far from democracy because they are suffering from those problems that are making it impossible for freedom to reach them, even if others want to give it to them. Remember, he said, if a nation doesn't know its rights through with ignorance, if it doesn't know its own rights, then even the patriotic rulers, whether they are Turkish state or Kurdish leaders, sheikhs, aghas, they were just they were really oppressors, sheikhs and aghas, because they were based on they relied on ignorance of people. But if you have elected people, representative people, and you know your rights, and you have people who are representing you, whether they are a sheikh or a notable person or an ordinary person, then what you have is freedom, is liberty, democracy, independence. Even independence, idea of independence, is possible only if you know your rights. Kudan and Mamkuran they had wild freedom. They were not paying taxes. Theirs was not a civil freedom. So whenever then the state will send military forces, soldiers, to tame them and discipline them and chastise them, and they would kill them and force them to pay even more than the taxes they would pay. So he's teaching an important lesson to his audience, and his audience a century later, that is today. Kurds are today, these are exact issues Kurds are dealing with, and for that matter Muslim societies as well. Mustafa, did you attempt to say something, Mustafa? Okay.
Me?
Yeah, I thought at some point. Okay. For the distance between you and Istanbul,
I think saying something also.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So then, politically thinking, so then something like devrim, right, or something like standing up or rioting against the government, then probably wouldn't yield what we want, right? If we want a democratic state, and if we want citizenship, right, without educating the society, is that a vain thing to do, or how should the strategy be? How should we proceed?
Yeah, a great question. Yeah, let's say you have a undemocratic environment, right? And you have an ignorant population. Which one is more reasonable path to pursue? Whether you should have a revolution on top and bring democracy there, or educate people from the bottom. I think the experience shows that if you have some revolution on the top, it doesn't work. It won't work the way you expect, because only part of the problem is the top. Most of the problem is the bottom. The nature of democracy itself requires people wanting it. Because people want it, it can exist. Dictatorship takes only one person to want it from the top. But democracy takes a lot of people in the bottom, and with their vigilance, with their sense of ownership, it can exist. Very crucial thing, as I was thinking about Said Nursi's attitude over time, is this: when there is despotism of Sultan Hamid, where does he go? Said Nursi goes to the palace. to get something for Kurds, because that's the source. That's where you can make change. You go to the palace, Yıldız Palace, and he does it in a kind of dignified and almost crazy manner, saying, "Oh, we Kurds, we deserve this. You have to give us a university, or you have to do this reform in the schools we have." But when constitutionalism is declared, he goes to the people, to the citizens, and Munazarat is product of that. So he's teaching democracy, democratic culture to people in a democratic manner, meaning from bottom up, awakening the sense of rights and citizenship among the people, self-ownership, so that transformation can come. But the time was tough, the idea was there, but in the bottom people were ignorant, so it didn't work. 100 years, it will take 100 years until Kurds awaken, educate themselves, learn that they shouldn't beg to Turkish state or expect rights to be given to them. You have to earn it, and earning it is through education. So I guess, answer to your question would be that there might be some room in situations where, there is an enlightened society, but there is a despot. There are such revolutions where it's the last straw in the back of the camel of authoritarianism. Revolution makes sense in that kind of situation. But in an authoritarian environment, sometimes those despots, sultans, kings, they are good-hearted people. They love their people, but they are despots because their people are ignorant. That's what Said Nursi is saying. If you remain ignorant, you will receive oppression, coercion. If you clear the ground from ignorance, from poverty, and from disunity, then the path of liberty will be opened. For the distance between you and Istanbul is 1 month, but the distance between you and the people of constitutionalism is more than 1,000 months. What does it mean? It means it's not just a geographic issue from Istanbul to, Diyarbakir or Hakkari or, Urfa or Erzurum. It is something greater than it. It's mentally, you are so far from civic culture. You are like people from out of the past. You are like people from out of the past.
But Manus, this it's following that, right? Where is it? So it's it's really interesting. Kurds and Istanbul, we will say maybe Turks too, right? Difference between Kurds and Turks are 1 month, and Kurds and constitutionalism is 1,000. So Turks and Meşrutiyet is 900. So Turks are also away from Meşrutiyet. Can we say that?
I think here he's talking to Kurds specifically, saying that, geographically you are 1 month away. You remember in the past it was either on horseback or, walking. So today it's with the, airplane. It's how far? Diyarbakir, an hour and a half from Istanbul. Okay, let's put it, 2 hours maximum. We are 2 hours different, distant, far from Istanbul, but from the mentality of constitutionalism, democracy, you are 1,000 months further, he says. It means there is a lot of work that needs to be done to cover that distance. Now, the distance is not a geographic distance. Yeah, it's about education, a capital of a different kind.
It says Ehli Meşrutiyet. So even in Istanbul, some groups who supports Meşrutiyet, and maybe they are also trying to educate other.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Empire, they need to be educated towards Meşrutiyet.
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly. So the idea here is that there are Turks maybe who are in the condition of Kurds as well. They remain ignorant and so on and so forth. But an elite group, a small group in Istanbul who were appreciating, Ahrar and, people of pro-democracy, Meşrutiyet, those people people who were for liberty, basically, let's put it that way. Those people are enlightened people. They see that as something desirable and so on. They have achieved that kind of qualification to be citizens. But the majority of people are not at that level. And Kurds are even further. You might say, oh, because, it's a little far by the time that technology reaches them, right? Sometimes you see something in Istanbul, but it takes a while until it becomes available in Ankara, and then in Diyarbakir or Hakkari. Those things are changing fast, of course, but the idea of constitutionalism, democracy, for that reason, it's very interesting. This, certain political groups have introduced idea of democratic, democracy, democratic confederalism, and that kind of stuff. It's an interesting to wonder if that's gonna count as a kind of education and learning process for at least part of the Kurds. It will be an interesting question from the point of view of Bediüzzaman's, so to say, prophecy or his kind of prediction about the future of Kurds. He says, you are like a people from out of the past. If our delicate constitutionalism, nazik meşrutiyet, delicate constitutionalism, survives the snakes around Istanbul. So there are snakes around Istanbul who doesn't want it to get out of Istanbul. Who want to bite her. She will still have to travel a vast distance. The distance from Istanbul to Kurdistan for democracy or constitutionalism to travel is first blocked by the snakes around Istanbul, and if she survives that, then crossing the terrible swamp of ignorance. See, ignorance, so crucial problem for the Kurds. The arid land of poverty, arid, dry land of poverty, steep mountains of enmity. Three major issues we see that. Even if, Turks have some bad intentions, snakes stands for that. If some, Turks want to manipulate Kurds, use them, exploit them, and these are snakes of Istanbul or Ankara capital. At the time, capital was Istanbul. If constitutionalism, democracy survives those snakes, still, how is it gonna cross this? It's like a survivor thing for poor constitution. It's delicate. It's wearing a, what is it? Brides wear, gelinlik, bridal, gown, or some nice fancy dress that a lady is wearing, and you want her to cross the desert. You want her to climb the mountains of enmity. You want her to cross the swamp, of ignorance. These are major, major obstacles. You have to drain that swamp. You have to make a tunnel connection through those mountains, connecting people, ending disunity. And the arid land of poverty has to be cleared and fixed. All right. She will still have to travel those, and only then will she come across the bandits. Here now we still, even if she crosses those things, she arrived at Kurdish lands. Guess what? There are whom? Bandits, Ashkia. God knows what this means. We should think about it. Huh?
Are these Aghaz?
I don't think so. I don't think it's us. I think it's the Kurds, Kurdish originated people who want to rule or control or manipulate Kurds. So you can think of.
That's what I mean by like they feudal lords or people who don't want to lose their, power.
Power, yeah. I think it's more modern Oz than the Oz you might have in mind. My guess is that because even you get those other things, other things eliminated. If it survives those things, it will be that. So there is then Kurds' internal question of banditry, eşkıyalık in different forms. We don't want to, repeat the language of, official language of manipulation. Nevertheless, in Kurdish lands, there has been, notion of eşkıya, lawlessness, basically. Lawless people who cause harm to civic culture. But who are these bandits? Let's see. I think he explains them in that next paragraph with which we will conclude our conversation today. He says some of them are disgruntled over a sentence they richly deserved. They were given a jaza, a sentence that they really deserved, but they are unhappy about it. There are others whose teeth have been taken away as a punishment for eating the flesh of others. And some people they are not vampires. What are those things? Zombies. Zombies eating flesh of people. So they are the zombies. Huh?
Like cannibals.
Yeah. So, like cannibals, they eat the flesh of other people. And still others who justifying themselves with the well-known Bektashi excuse. You know what the Bektashi excuse is? Do not approach prayer. They quote that verse and they say we don't need to pray because that's what Quran says. But they are taking only part of the verse. So it's the famous Bektashi excuse. They are descending on the road to rob and plunder. So these are lawless people who have been punished. You are right. I think he is probably, Ümit, is referring to three authority figures in the Kurdish lands. Sheikh, Agha, and whoever the third one I can't think right now. But the old authority who have lost their grasp, their seat is taken, and they were sentenced to a punishment. They were given a sentence. Those people will try to block the process of democracy. Further on, there are demagogues who will seek any pretext to dismember her. Then there will be demagogues who would try to dismember our constitutionalism. Therefore, you Kurds, you should pave a road, or better yet, build a balloon for her. There were zeppelins in the past. At some point it was the highest technology. Before the airplanes, that was the highest technology. From one place to another, you can, travel. So he says, build a balloon if you cannot pave the road. So you have to find the shortest way to bring her. And here I think it's important, paving road has become easier, but now transportation technology has gone even better than balloon. He's saying that, it doesn't have to take that long for you. If you show enough will and effort, it will be possible to bring that delicate constitutionalism, liberty to Kurdish lands. We can stop here, I think.